Hey gorgeous peeps, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and this bad boy right here is the Google Pixel 6, a smartphone that's had a small amount of hype surrounding it recently, despite the fact that it has been leaked to buggery, mostly by Google itself in fact. The Pixel 6 will cost you 599 quid when it goes on sale on October the 28th. Not a bad price at all considering the beefy specs packed inside this thing. It is of course running off of Google's fresh new Tensor chipset, and you've got a massively upgraded camera system. So enough of me banging on, let's whip the Google Pixel 6 on out of its box, take you on a tour of the hardware and the software. Unfortunately, I can't show you any camera samples or some of the new features just yet. That's embargoed until the full review drop next Monday, so stay tuned for that. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please subscribe, yada yada yada. So first up, a quick squint at what's inside the box besides, naturally, the Pixel 6. And it's quite a dinky box, but they've managed to pack a fair amount of stuff in here. It's got your usual quick start guide shenanigans and a pokey pin to get your SIM in there. You've got a USB Type-C to Type-C cable. And you've also got a USB-A to Type-C adapter as well, handy for transferring files from one phone to another. And that's it, there's no power adapter included in there, and there's no headphone adapter either because it's sadly no headphone jack action here on the Pixel 6. And now here we have it, the Google Pixel 6 in all of its splendor, and a smartphone that you'll probably be quite familiar with if you've been following the leaks and rumors, because it's been splashed all over the internet rather shamelessly. So first impressions of the Google Pixel 6 is definitely bigger and also heftier compared with the Pixel 5 from last year. It's a 6.4 inch smartphone now, so it's grown considerably in size, and 207 grams as well, so it's got a serious weight to it. Well, the Pixel 5 went for a matte back end with a sort of strange cardboardy feel. The Pixel 6 replaces that with a glass design front and back separated by a tactile aluminium frame. There's Gorilla Glass 6 around back, whereas you've got a Gorilla Glass Victus display up front, no pre-installed screen protector. I've got to say though, I have found that with smartphones I've reviewed in the past with Gorilla Glass Victus coating, they do tend to scratch up a little bit more easily than expected, although they are fully drop resistant as well. I've dropped loads of the buggers face down onto concrete, and touch wood so far, none of those displays have shattered. Of course, I will be using this as my full-time smartphone, so stay tuned for my in-depth review to see if it really does scratch up under pressure. And as with last year's flagship smartphone, the Pixel 6 is fully IP68 water and dust resistant, so yeah, you can happily kick back in the bathtub with a bit of anime box set action, not worry if your hands get a little bit sudsy and it ends up dropping in the water. And Google once again going for slightly quirky names for the colours. This is the stormy black model of the Pixel 6, but you can also grab it in kinda coral and sorta seafoam. Doesn't look like any seafoam I've ever seen, but these guys I guess are from California or whatever, so they probably don't have quite as much dog shit in their sea. I've been playing with the Pixel 6 for about 24 hours now, and I've got to say I do like that design. It's very smart, very sleek, just a small bit of Google logo action on the back end, and that's basically it, besides of course the whopping enormous camera bump, which isn't quite seamless sadly, but it is still definitely very striking. And the fact that it actually stretches the entire width of the arse end of the Pixel 6 means that whenever you rest the phone on a desk or a table and you're poking and prodding the screen, it's not rocking about the place, so that is definitely a massive benefit. And that protrusion also adds a bit of friction as well when you stick the Pixel 6 down on the arm of a sofa, for instance, so despite the super slippery smooth back end, it doesn't just immediately glide to the edge and just hurl itself off onto the floor. And yeah, the bezels surrounding the display aren't exactly super skinny, which I can see a lot of people lamenting for sure, but they're not crazy thick either. I'm just glad that it doesn't have a big fat ridiculous mustache notch up top like those iPhones. You just got a dinky selfie orifice centrally positioned. As for the SIM tray situation here on the Pixel 6, very straightforward, space for one SIM card, and that is it. It's not a reversible SIM tray, definitely no space for any micro SD memory cards, so if you do want to set up two SIMs at once, you'll have to use a bit of eSIM action. And before we finish on the design side of things as well, Google very kindly sent me in the official Pixel 6 case. Let's slap that on, see what it looks like. So it's a plastic case, but it is constructed from over 30% recycled plastic, so sort of saving the environment there. And as you can see there, it is translucent, fully and neatly envelops your Google Pixel 6, and it's quite a snug fit, which is good to see. And the case actually covers the power button and the volume rocker here on the right edge, but that section is soft touch, so you can still thankfully access the buttons, which is always helpful. And as you can hopefully see there, it just pokes up ever so slightly above the surface of the display, so that should help protect the screen from scratching as well. And of course, now that it's slapped onto the stormy black model, you can't tell that it's a translucent case at all, but if you've got one of the lighter, brighter models, then it will be nice having that translucency so you can still see the gorgeous bright colors underneath. So the Pixel 6, as I said, I've been using it for about 24 hours so far at the time I shot this unboxing, and so far really enjoying the Android 12 experience on this thing. It's essentially the Android we all know and love, except with a few little tweaks here and there just to clean up the aesthetics a bit and to add in some pretty nifty new features. So as usual, you got access to all of your notifications by dragging down and some of your fast access features as well. There's a good bit of Google Pay action in there. You drag down again, you've got even more toggles to play around with. You can also quickly and easily access the power options from there as well, because by default, a long press of that power button will just bring up the Google Assistant. Not strictly necessary because you've got that omnipresent Google search bar with full voice access and a good bit of lens action too. And as always, you've got a strong selection of wallpapers on there as well. So if we tap change wallpaper, you've got all kinds of different themes on here. The bloom ones are the ones that come by default here on the Google Pixel 6. And I really like the subtle little changes to the UI to match your wallpaper as well. So for instance, got very blue wallpaper here, got a bit of spike action. And as you can see, the Google app icons have changed to have a sort of blue shade to match it. Alternatively, with the wallpaper that is predominantly red, you've now got this lovely sort of pinky hue. There's quite a few great new features bundled here in Android 12 on the Pixel 6, including a dedicated security hub, gives you fast, easy access to all of your privacy and security features, including your biometrics, all that good stuff. And thanks to that Tensor chipset, you've got more advanced speech recognition here on the Pixel 6 as well. So for instance, one of the new features is the call screen feature. You're getting a call from someone, you've got no idea who the blazers they are. You tap call screen, basically your phone will say, "Why are you calling?" And then they will respond. You'll get a transcription of exactly what they say. So if it's some marketing spammy bollocks, you can say, "No, thank you very much." Or if it's your mum saying, "Chris, why haven't you called in weeks? Please pick up the phone," you can say, "No, thank you very much." Just kidding, mum. Obviously, always love having a chat, and sorry for saying bollocks just then as well. There's lots of other features to speak about, but I can't actually show them in action until my full in-depth Pixel 6 review goes live next Monday, so again, stay tuned for that. But more good news on the software front is that Google is promising 5 years of security updates for the Pixel 6, so it'll see you well into the future, and hopefully for at least most, if not all of those 5 years, you'll also get Android OS updates. To actually unlock the Pixel 6, you do have Google's in-display fingerprint sensor here, so it's no longer mounted on the back end. And so far, TouchWiz seems nice and nippy and responsive. As you can see, you've got your finger guide right there. I'm glad that it's actually a ways up the display as well. It's not like cramped all the way down here at the bottom, which is sometimes a little bit awkward. So definitely so far a fan of that optical sensor. And of course, you've got the usual always on display shenanigans as well. Nice massive clock there, so you're always aware of what the time is. Sadly, however, no face unlock support still on the Pixel 6, so it is fingerprints all the way. And as for your storage, well, it's 128 gigs UFS 3.1 as default, but you can upgrade to 256 gigs, double that storage, for the Black and the C4 models if you throw a bit more cash at Google. So the Pixel 6 sports an enlarged 6.4-inch OLED panel. It's bigger than before and it's just as beautiful. First impressions very strong indeed. It's 20:9 aspect ratio, so very good for kicking back with a bit of Netflix, a bit of movie action on Disney Plus, whatever you want. As I mentioned before, the slight intrusion from that selfie camera orifice when you do decide to go full screen. It's a full HD plus resolution, 2400 by 1080 pixels, so nice crisp images no matter what you're up to. You've got HDR streaming support for services like Netflix, nice natural looking colors and sharp contrast as well. But when you're watching more vibrant, vivid fare like something from Pixar, for instance, those colors are really poppy on the default adaptive mode. They are absolutely gorgeous. Nice wide viewing angles and everything as you would expect, and on that maximum brightness level as well, no trouble seeing what's going on with the Pixel 6 when you're outdoors. Of course, I haven't had a chance to test it in direct sunlight because it's October in the UK, but you know, give it another 7 or 8 months and I might be able to give that a go. And by default, the Pixel 6 uses an adaptive refresh rate, so it can only go as low as 60 Hz, but it can bump up to 90 Hz when needed, just for that silky smooth finish. And sadly, no, there's no headphone jack action here on the Pixel 6 as with previous Pixel flagship smartphones, but what you do get is a very respectable stereo speaker setup here if you just want to ditch the headphones entirely. Otherwise, if you want to go wireless, Bluetooth 5.2 support, which seems dependable. And of course, one of the big headlines with the Pixel 6 is that the performance comes courtesy of that Google Tensor chipset, backed here on the Pixel 6 by 8 gigs of DDR5 RAM. And this is every bit as nippy as you would hope it would be. Just basically tap an app and up it pops. You've got a 20-core GPU on there, so it should be brilliant for a good bit of extended gaming shenanigans as well. You want to just basically blast a good bit of Call of Duty Mobile, a bit of Genshin Impact, whatever you fancy, all afternoon long. The Tensor chipset sports a separate security core for running all of your more sensitive tasks. Plus, of course, you've got that Titan M2 security chip to store all of your really precious private data. And here in the UK, you've got sub-6 5G support built into the Pixel 6 as well. And I believe that other models in the likes of the US, you've got that millimeter wave support as well, where those networks have actually rolled out already. And that's all on top of a good bit of Wi-Fi 6E support as well, so definitely a good bit of future-proof in there. As for the battery, well, that's a 4600 milliamp cell crammed inside of this enlarged Pixel 6. And from what I've seen so far, the battery life on the Pixel 6 looks like it could be absolutely fantastic. But of course, stay tuned for my in-depth review for a full, final frank verdict on that front. And the Pixel 6 supports up to 30 watt fast charger, not quite as nippy as quite a lot of its rivals. And of course, you don't get that adapter actually bundled in the box. You will have to buy that separately if you don't have your own to hand. Good news is, though, that the Pixel 6 does support wireless charging as well, the usual Qi standards. You'll get up to 21 watt wireless charging with that second generation Pixel stand. As for the camera tech, well, it's a dual lens setup here on the back end of the Pixel 6, a 50 megapixel primary camera sensor with optical image stabilization, plus a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle shooter. And as well as that obvious boost in the megapixel count, Google has also enlarged the sensor sizes 2.5 times bigger than the Pixel 5, so shouldn't be relying entirely on software smarts for great low light shots. And you got a good bit of edge distortion correction with the 12 megapixel ultra wide angle shooter as well. No telephoto lens, unfortunately, here on the Pixel 6, unlike the Pixel 6 Pro. Plenty of bonus camera modes to play around with as well, of course, including good old trusty portrait mode. You've got the fresh new motion mode, which is good for active subjects apparently. Night sight mode, of course, when things get rather dim. And then for your home movie needs, you shoot at full HD by default. You can bump that up to 4K, which I will do. And that does shoot at 30 or 60 frames per second. And last up, around front, that selfie shooter is an 8 megapixel effort. And unfortunately, I can't show you any actual samples taken from the camera. I can't show you any of the features in action. So you'll have to stay tuned for my in-depth Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro camera review / comparison, which will be going live next Monday. So that right there in a nutshell is the fresh new Google Pixel 6 smartphone. As I say, it can be yours for 600 quid from October the 28th. And so far, I'm pretty ruddy excited. Can't wait to properly dive in there, give the performance, the battery life, and that camera tech a full-on test. Because a few of the old bugbears cropping up as usual, lack of a headphone jack and no expandable storage, which is a bit of a shame, although at least you got the 256 gig option in there. But what do you guys reckon? Are you tempted by the Google Pixel 6 as well? It'd be great to hear your early impressions down below in the comments. And as I say, stay tuned. Next Monday, I'll bring you a full review of the standard Pixel 6 and an in-depth look at the camera tech as well. For more on the latest and greatest tech, of course, box subscribe, ding that notifications bell, yada yada, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of the week. Cheers, everyone. Love you.